TWSN Patreon page. Here we will provide you with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course, the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Welcome back, everyone, to another weekly episode of Off the Top Rope, live here on the TWSN YouTube channel. I'm your host, Justin Lacertosa, joined by my co-host, Matt Blaustein. Matt, we have a lot to talk about this week. Wrestlemania season kicking into full gear. We have a lot to talk about AEW, Cesaro leaving the company. We're going to get all to that later, but how are you doing right now?
I'm doing well. It's been a very crazy week in professional wrestling. A lot of stuff has broken since we just last recorded our podcast last week. And it's really become a very interesting week for the future of professional wrestling with a few things that happened this week.
Yeah, exactly. We have the Unification, which we're going to talk about later in the future of the company after the titles get unified. We also have some women's title matches to talk about, the rest of the Wrestlemania card, and as I said before, AEW and Cesaro leaving. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we get started, though, please subscribe to the TWSN YouTube channel. If you like content like this, daily live shows, we have it for every single sport. We're very diverse in that aspect. We have video breakdowns from our team of 50+. We're pumping our content left and right every day. Also, download the TWSN mobile app to access all of our content and articles from our team of 50+. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TWSN. And subscribe to the TWSN Betting Patreon. If you throw in some money, you gain some money as well. Simple as that. So subscribe to the Betting Patreon. And let's hop right into it. And first, I want to start off with Cesaro leaving the company. News broke about a week ago that the two sides couldn't really agree on a new deal together. And who really knows whether this has to do with Cesaro's creative stance and how they were booking him. But Matt, what are your first initial thoughts on Cesaro leaving the company?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a conflicted thought here. I think he did everything he could achieve in WWE. Not in the idea of him, like his future level of like what he could do, his skill level, but what WWE was willing to book him as. And I think that with Cesaro, you have a guy who he's 41 years old. He joined the company, and I think it was back in 2012, 2011, after a few great years in the independent scene. So he's been with the company for well over 10, 11 years now. And they were never really willing to give him that, big push to be your main eventer. I think there was a huge availability to make him into one of the next big things after he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal back at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. Especially that moment with him, slamming the Big Show. That was huge and got the biggest pop of the night. So besides Daniel Bryan winning. So I think you look at it like this, it's missed potential again. But at the same time, I mean, what it sounds like was he was comfortable where he was at in WWE. He was pretty much there to he was kind of hybrid wrestler, hybrid trainer. He was apparently the guy in the back who people would ask if the spot was possible, and he would come out to the ring with them and they would test it with him, being the person who was being slammed or whatever, because he was willing to take one for the team and kind of make sure people were performing well. Cesaro's 41 years old. He's not, I pinned that comment. He's not a Roman Reigns level dude, but he is a really good hand and someone that should be the gatekeeper for young guys. With that being said, I don't think he should go to AEW. And the reason why I don't think he should is because that roster is incredibly saturated and there is a very big emphasis on pushing the younger guys. With the exception of Keith Lee, you look at all the people who came in as free agents and how they've been used. And they're really used the older guys like Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley to put over some of the younger talent. And if Cesaro is someone who everyone wants to see get that world championship opportunity. So I think honestly what you do is you have Cesaro go to Impact. I think that's the most reasonable place for him to go. It's not a far move for him because I believe he still lives in Florida and that's where they do their tapings out of right now. Cesaro is I believe, a U.S. citizen. I cannot confirm that, but I think he is. Either that or he has his green card, but I think he's worked here long enough that I think he was able to get a citizenship. But another thing too that a lot of people have been thinking is whether or not he shows up in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think that's definitely a possibility. I think the G1 Climax that they run every single year is definitely a possibility for him to pull up to. So altogether, I mean, this is one release where, you know, as much as it is wasted potential, I can't really like be pissed off that he left or like that he didn't renew his contract or that WWE didn't like, you know, really make an effort to re-sign him, because he is 41. He is a little bit older. And if you look at their product right now, there really just isn't a place for him creatively.
Yeah, I think this has just been a long time coming. It got to a point where I thought Cesaro was a WWE lifer and he was going to stay there till the day he retires. But obviously, as we said before, they couldn't agree on a new deal. Both sides couldn't. And for a while, till around like 2019, I want to say, I thought he was gone. I thought at some point he would be gone, and then it started to come back around. And hearing some things that how beloved he was in the locker room, helping guys with spots and matches, hearing all that, I thought he was there for life. But it really it shocked me that this happened right now. I wouldn't have been surprised, again, a couple years ago, but right now I'm pretty shocked. As for where he should go, I would say Impact as well. I think AEW could do a lot better than WWE did with him as a talent. But again, they're so oversaturated, and there really isn't a big picture for him in AEW, I don't think. I think giving him that spotlight on Impact, although they are pretty clearly the third brand right now behind WWE and AEW, giving him that spotlight, if he wants to have a main event run, I think he should go there. But, I mean, it really comes down to what he wants to do. If he wants to continue to do what he did in WWE, then he should probably go to AEW, because although that isn't a main event role, helping develop some of the young guys on that roster and also helping put some of them over while also probably getting a bigger role in the main event scene, that's something that I could see happening as well, although I don't think he would be one of their bigger stars. I think he could fit in really well in a role that he really played well in WWE. And again, in WWE, he was really that mentor guy in the locker room, and he helped guys with spots, developed some guys, and he still wasn't using the main event picture. If he goes to AEW and does that, he'll probably be using the main event picture a little bit more while pulling off that same role. So I wouldn't really hate him going to AEW, but I still do want to see him get that main event push in some company, whether it's New Japan or Impact. I want to see that. But talking about more WWE's perspective, I mean, it felt like the only reason they were keeping him at the time is just so no one else got him. And it's pretty clear that they're doing that with a lot of guys too. Like, for example, like Dolph Ziggler, it's clear that they're keeping him most likely, obviously due to his veteran presence, but also so other companies don't get him. I feel like it was the same line for Cesaro as well. I didn't really see much of a future for him in WWE right now. I don't think he was ever going to win any title ever again. Maybe a tag team title, but I don't think any singles title, whether it's WWE title or Intercontinental, I don't think he was going to win one ever again. I thought potentially throwing Cesaro in NXT for a short run would have been a nice refresher for his character, but I don't think they would have done anything really long term with that, and that's not something I would have liked to see long term either. It's really just a big waste of potential, in my opinion, from WWE, and it's pretty clear that everyone knows that Cesaro was a big waste of potential for WWE. So I'm pretty shocked that it happened at this point, but I mean, like, for his career and his sake and the sake of everyone else wanting him to succeed, I think it was a good move for both sides to not agree on a new deal.
Yeah, and I think there's also another topic we got to talk about before we go into outcomes of unification matches and stuff like that. We need to talk about this, and permit me to I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is a completely different topic, but we need to talk about this. So let's talk about control your narrative, because this is a really weird kind of new thing that is going on. It's being headed up by EC3 and Braun Strowman, or formerly known as Braun Strowman, now Adam Scherr, or the Titan, or whatever you want to call it. There's been a lot of different stuff going on about this promotion. There's a lot of, just weird stuff. People have been, pondering what this is. Have you heard about this, Justin, or no?
I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't really done too much research on the topic, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, so it's very confusing to me. We're talking about, I see Chase reacting with an LOL right there. But I guess in essence, what it is there are a whole bunch of rumors on Reddit about what it is. The one rumor that was disproven, but I was laughing because if it was true, I was going to die of laughter, was that this was a promotion headed up by EC3, but was going to be invested in by people like Tucker Carlson and Dan Bongino and a bunch of other right-wing people. I'm not going to go too much into that. I don't like talking politics on this show, but basically what it sounded like was no censorship, saying whatever the hell you want, having really sketchy angles, sometimes with regards to stuff that is not deemed PC. That was at least the vibe that I got from what I was listening to and what I read about it. And the rumor was also they were going to hire all the people who have been, I guess, quote unquote, canceled in wrestling. Strowman is claiming that he's been canceled because he acted like a dumbass over the pandemic and called out Evil Uno and a bunch of other AEW wrestlers and said, you shouldn't be a wrestler if you can't afford anything. And I started from nothing and now I'm a multimillionaire, but like he didn't. It was just a weird, I pin that by Chase. I think that's the best explanation. It's pretty much a socio-political company that will allow wrestlers to say what they want to say without fear of being taken down by the mob. So in effect, it's your Breitbart of professional wrestling. It's your OANN. I think it's going to crash and burn. I think this is going to be a Dark Side in the Ring episode in the making, especially since they just hired Austin Aries. The same Austin Aries who said people should be put in jail for getting a COVID vaccine. So it's going to be an interesting promotion to watch. I'm planning on watching one episode and I'm probably going to turn it off from disgust. I got to say overall, good for EC3 for finding his niche here. It sucks because I did think he had a lot of potential and him doing this is effectively going to blackball him from the rest of the professional wrestling world. But it should be an interesting watch. It's just the people who are on there don't really do it for me. It's Austin Aries, it's Braun Strowman, it's EC3. It's Damo, formerly known as Killian Dana. I like Damo, but I'm just not going to tune in just because of him. It's also got formerly known as Eric Rowan, now Eric Redbeard is going to be on the show. It's just a little confusing to me about what this is, but I like that latest comment by Chase. But yes, Adam Scherr is going to be on here, and I guess he's going to do whatever he wants. I wouldn't be surprised if he literally takes an AK down to the ring and just like starts shooting targets and saying Second Amendment, because that's the vibe he gives me on social media. But that's effectively what Control Your Narrative is. Just for like a brief cutaway, I just feel like we had to talk about it briefly because it does seem like it's about to become the biggest shit show in professional wrestling in a long time. So.
I haven't really done too much research, whether it's on Reddit or Twitter or social media or wherever, about this promotion, but I heard about it, and I mean, this is really the first time I'm hearing insight from other people about this, because quite frankly, I wasn't too interested in it. It didn't really grab my attention too much. It grabs my attention in the wrong ways now hearing about it, reading this, that it's more of a political thing. As you said, I think this could crash and burn easily. Just from the brief things I've heard from you just now, I think this could easily crash and burn. And I really don't know what their objective is with it. Do you know when they're starting this promotion?
I think it's beginning of March. Give me a second. Let me see. It is going to be starting on March 5th. Also, looking at the poster that they have, it is just, wow. Let me share my screen again because this is really something. Yeah, so that's the poster they have right now.
Is this on live television? I'm assuming not.
They said they had a cable deal. It has not been confirmed where that is going to be, but Braun came out and said that they have a cable deal. But it is Control Your Narrative has found its purpose and is proud to announce Awakening Live, a series of live events featuring combative professional wrestling action and the real stories of those who choose to fight. Headlined by the Titan Adam Scherr, EC3, the newly recruited Killer. Oh, they got Cross, bro. I didn't know they had Cross, but I guess they have Cross. Other top names in the field of sports and entertainment. Live event under the guise of a traditional wrestling show that'll be everything but traditional. Unique interactive experience where fans can not only meet and greet their favorite stars, meet and greet their favorite stars, but watch them do what these world-class competitors do best. So I guess, man, they have this. I mean, I don't really know how to react here. Free the narrative, the monster in us all, but that was last year. But oh boy, okay. So I think that's going to be really interesting. In all the bad ways. I saw them also apparently they're selling on Twitter. You have to pay money to get put in a Zoom room with your least favorite wrestler and you can scream insults at him for 3 minutes straight. EC3 is selling that space for I think it's like $100 a pop. So I mean, if you want to make money somehow and some bozo wants to go yell at like Killer Cross, I guess you could do that, but that just sounds like a disaster in the making. So I mean, I can't even process this without laughing. So okay, I'm going to take a look at that. But yeah, this is just gonna be a disaster.
I'm just at this point, I'm confused. I didn't hear much about it. I didn't really look for much about it because, quite frankly, again, I wasn't too interested. But hearing about this and seeing that, I mean, it intrigues me, but like in the wrong ways. Like I want to see how this crashes and burns because from what I've heard, I can pretty much guarantee that it's going to. I just want to see how. I want to see what this is. And now I'm way more interested in this than before. And when did they announce this again? Because I remember hearing about it, but
I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
3 or 4 weeks ago.
It was something that EC3's been doing this ever since he got released. His whole gimmick has been free the narrative, control the narrative. What the narrative is, no one knows. He's been doing like gritty cinematic matches on YouTube, which I've seen one. They were okay. Live watch along of Control Your Narrative. I can check my calendar, but I'd do it if I'm around. I just don't really know if I'm going to want to like subject myself to that because it's going to be brutal. And like, I'm really not really too hyped on seeing this. I just feel like it's going to be a disaster from the forefront. Especially since if the main event is Braun versus EC3, like I'm not interested in that match.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's just okay. Yeah, so I don't want to keep it on Control Your Narrative for that long. I just thought it was worth mentioning. But let's definitely talk about Unification next.
Yeah, and I mean, just hearing about that one more time, I mean, like, thinking WWE was going down the wrong path, I mean, this could really take some of that bad light off of them and throw it on there for the time being, at least, until we get to that Unification match on April 3rd, I believe it is, at WrestleMania. I think this is going to be a disaster in itself as well. But we could talk about it a little more. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, WWE title for Universal title, winner takes all. And it just seems like, again, I feel like this is a feud that I would enjoy so much more if one, it wasn't oversaturated, and this was like the 10th time we've gotten this match, and two, if it wasn't for both titles, and also three, if the whole company wasn't centered around this feud. I kind of do know what to expect going to this match. I kind of do expect Roman Reigns to walk out victorious, but I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, because it seems like we have this conversation every week, but just give your thoughts on this match right now, and then we'll get into the future WWE after they unify these titles.
Yeah, I mean, the match itself, you're absolutely right. It is completely oversaturated at this point. We've seen this match 7 times over the last, 7 years. So seeing this again in the main event spot at WrestleMania, no less, is kind of annoying. I think also my worry is the last WrestleMania main event that they had together, WrestleMania 34, was one of the worst ones of all time. So, having that fact in mind and then, seeing this being the main event from night 2 does worry me a little bit. There's a lot that I could say about this match. I could just reaffirm the fact that it's just completely unnecessary. They could have a good match that's doors just weak. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. They need, my worry is here, Roman's moveset and Roman's character has changed so much since he last fought Brock. He's so much more of a grounded guy now. He's using chokes. He's using more aggressive moves. I really want to see some interesting stuff, though, and I'm just worried that this match is not going to deliver. especially since the last one was so abysmal. I know Brock has the motor to do it. Brock has put on some really good matches. That even I rewatched Elimination Chamber, and honestly, I liked the main event match, even though like it was very predictable and like kind of crapped all over the format. It did like really, solidify Brock's status, even though he didn't need it. But like it really just was a fun watch. But I guess, I mean, for me, I'm just getting worried right now that the issue here is Roman doesn't win and Brock wins. And then apparently the rumor is they're introducing another title. And I think also, I think another thing to think about is maybe the reason why they're doing this unification is because they've wanted to get rid of the universal belt because it's just so damn ugly. And just keeping that WWE Heavyweight Championship design very Roman to just say, I got a new prize now and ditch the universal title and just use the, new one. And then they introduce a new belt. I've been saying for years that they need to bring back the gold belt, the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship. Whether they do that or not, I have no idea, but it does make the most sense. And if they want to really appease to some fans, bring it back, make that be your second main event title. My worry right now is if Brock does win the title, then Roman obviously wins the tournament to make that next title. He just becomes oversaturated at that point. You don't really have anyone else in the main event scene that can contend with Roman, especially on a current basis on SmackDown. There's no one besides Drew McIntyre, and Drew, as much as I love Drew doesn't really feel like legitimate enough to beat Roman until they like build him up again. So I think they've already booked themselves into a corner. If I'm WWE, I am hot-shotting Braun Breaker to the main roster as fast as I can post-WrestleMania. Give him a good title, loss to Carmelo Hayes. That just looks like the way it's going to go. Just have Hayes lose the North American title, beat Braun Breaker for the main event title, and just send him up to the main roster because that should be your guy who wins that new championship. That should be the first winner of that championship, especially if it's going to be a Raw exclusive because it looks like it. They really need stars on Raw. Like they really, on both brands, they need it. SmackDown, they need it even more. But if Roman's staying on SmackDown because they have the Fox contract, they are going to need a new hungry talent on Raw. And I think Breaker will do that.
I think this is just a lose situation. I don't think there's any way they could come out of this main event match with a win. And maybe if it was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for one title, I mean, again, the storyline and the match is oversaturated. But maybe if it was for one title, it wouldn't be that case. Maybe there could be some possible good outcomes for this. But I just think unifying the titles, again, I think it's such a dumb idea. And if they were to have that scenario happen where Lesnar wins and Roman just wins another title, first of all, that would probably imply that they're going to have another feud and another unification match or something like that. Because the company's been building this feud up for, 7 years now? They're trying to make this the next Rock and Austin, Hogan and Andre the Giant. They're trying to make it that. And I really can't get behind it right now. It's it's a feud that we'll remember, but not in that sense. I don't think we're going to remember it in that sense at all. I think on one hand, you have Roman Reigns win both titles, which is what I think is going to happen. What I truly think will happen is Roman wins both titles, holds on to them for another year to set up against The Rock, keeps it there, and then loses it sometime after. That's what I probably think will happen, because if you want to have The Rock come back, they're probably going to put both titles on Roman, make him look as physically dominant as possible, as unbeatable as possible, and have him face The Rock, which is, I think, will be the plan, whether The Rock comes back or not. I think they're going to do everything they can to make sure Roman looks dominant just in case that match happens. But I think Roman Reigns does win, and I think he holds on to both titles for a while. But the problem with that is at that point, Roman Reigns he becomes too unbeatable. I mean, there were a ton of matches where we thought Roman could potentially lose, like against Edge at WrestleMania and even potentially at Money in the Bank. We also thought that against Seth Rollins. And even against Finn Balor, it looked pretty convincing that Balor could have won there. And there were a ton of other feuds, too, that I can't really think of off the top of my head. But, I mean, at this point, if Roman wins this match and wins both titles and holds on to it, if he goes into a feud against like a Matt Riddle or someone along those lines, it's pretty obvious that Roman Reigns is going to win. And it's going to take all the unpredictability out of it. So that's one of the bad options. Another one is if Brock Lesnar wins and Roman Reigns brings in a new title, which again, that could potentially set up another feud between them, which we don't really want to see, or even just have Roman Reigns be that champion again and hold on to it for another year plus. I don't see any positive outcome for this unification match. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they'll bring in another title or end the brand split. I just don't see any positive outcome for it whatsoever.
I think they're going to keep the brand split because the sole revenue that they've generated from it has been insane. And Fox and NBC Universal would likely try to restructure their deals if they did make it one roster because they're getting the same product. However, what I will say is this, as I do more thinking about it, I do think they are going to introduce a second championship, unify the belts, get rid of the Universal title, keep the WWE World Heavyweight title. And I think they're going to introduce a new championship. I don't know how I didn't think about this before, but without a doubt, I think the person who wins that title first is Cody. If you are Cody Rhodes, who had a top position at AEW, and WWE really wants to show to AEW that you could succeed in WWE, and they want to appeal to that market where they could, it's all about these days about generating revenue, about retaining that viewer base, getting new viewers. I do think it makes the most sense to get Cody Rhodes that main title because I don't think he would have signed without that guarantee. He's getting paid. I'm trying to think how highly he's getting paid. AJ Styles just re-signed with WWE. I think it was 3 years, $5 million. I have to imagine Cody's is probably 3 or 2 years, $6-7 million. It's probably going to parallel to Brock Lesnar's contract, but slightly less because Cody, out of nowhere, Cody has become a main event star, not just in wrestling, but he's hosting his own show on TNT. He had that show with Brandy. He's making more and more talk show appearances. He's appearing a lot out of wrestling in things, and he is starting to generate himself a new celebrity status. Hell, even I was on Snapchat the other day, and a Daily Mail covered Cody leaving AEW, and that's one of the biggest gossip publications in England. So oh Lord, if Cody went to control your narrative, I guarantee you that would be the last thing that would happen. Also because literally, I don't want to call control your narrative control your right-wing narrative, but it really is that. It just seems like it's a Republican promotion. Just objectively, if you look at it, it just looks like it's something where they're going for a free censorship-free show, and that's what they're going for to appeal to that base. 3 years, $3 million as well with incentives. Okay, so those incentives are probably retaining his Twitch channel, probably some stuff with future championship matches, and guarantees with merchandise. So that makes sense. Then bottom line, that's probably going to be around 3 years, $5 million total, because you're going to get the extra $2 million from the revenue from your merch and from appearances on things. So that, I'd say Cody is probably on par with that, but probably more. I think Cody becomes a top 4 paid talent in WWE. I'm trying to remember how much Rollins' contract was when he re-signed, but Rollins got paid bank. And with the Saudi deal and the new Fox deal, the WWE can definitely afford to, give out the big bucks to Cody. So, it's not going to be on par with Brock. Brock, I think, was 2 years, $10 million. And Cena also was 3 years, $9 million. It's not going to be on that par, but I could definitely see it being 2 years, $6 million. And just doing that short-term thing, a short-term investment, seeing what happens.
Yeah, I could see Cody winning that new title as well, but again, I feel like they're trying to set up this Rock match so hard, whether it happens or not. We don't know whether that's going to happen yet, but I feel like they're trying their best to. I feel like if they add another title, Roman's just going to take it right away. That's what I feel like is going to happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen if Brock wins, though. That's the thing. I don't know what happens on his side. They could potentially bring in another title, but if Brock Lesnar wins, what do you think they do with his title run?
I think he vanishes. I mean, he does it all the time. He seems to be having the time of his life right now. But I think there's only one human being that he would allow the title to get taken off of him, and I think that is Braun Breaker. Just, he really does seem like he loves working with the younger guys, and with people who are not in the main event level. I mean, you saw his match with Austin, or his encounter with Austin Theory. He has a lot of respect for Theory. You saw he's just had a lot of interactions with younger talent. Finn Balor and him had a really underrated match a few years ago at the Royal Rumble. That was excellent. I think it makes the most sense for Brock to try to wrestle a younger talent, and probably lose the title at SummerSlam. I don't think WWE allows him to take it for the full year. It just doesn't really make sense in my mind. You remember the disaster of like 2017, 2018, where he literally held it hostage from WrestleMania on until the following WrestleMania. So I think that is what happens. I think they're going to pretty much if Brock wins the belt, I think he loses it to Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, or Young Talent. He'd never lose it to Riddle, though. He does have real life heat with Riddle. So
I think I could see Brock staying until after Mania Backlash. I could see that too, and not on really this full-time basis. I think he's definitely going to stay, obviously. I think that's pretty much a done deal at this point. They signed a new deal. I think it had 8 matches on it, and since then he's had, I believe, 1, 2, probably like 4 or 5 matches since then. So he still has a lot of time. But I feel like what's probably going to happen if Brock Lesnar wins, I think he'll just drop it to McIntyre again because you still have that feud written up about them at WrestleMania. I feel like he'll just drop it to McIntyre again because, again, I feel like Braun Breaker is going to be the guy going into the future, but I also feel like they're not going to shoot him into that right away. I feel like they're going to trust more of their veteran talent to take that title off Brock Lesnar right away, and then whatever happens, happens. But I don't think it's going to happen right when he debuts, unless he debuts right after WrestleMania, have Brock hold the title till the Saudi show, and then have Braun Breaker win it there. That's possible, or maybe even SummerSlam, but I feel like he'll just lose it to Drew McIntyre again because I think they've tried to set up that match again, or not set it up, but throw subtle hints at it, especially in that Royal Rumble. I think that's probably the way they go. I think regardless of whether Lesnar wins or not, his next feud is against McIntyre. I'm not sure how much longer he'll stay in the company, but I think his next feud is definitely against McIntyre. And I'd be pretty shocked to see otherwise. But I want to talk a little bit more about Cody Rhodes quickly. We talked about him last week, but he obviously didn't debut on last week's Raw. I didn't expect him to. You did, but I didn't really see that happening just last week. But do you think he's still locked in for the WrestleMania card? I think he is. And if so, what do you think happens from then on out?
yeah, I think he's absolutely locked. I forgot who it was, though. I need to find this tweet because there was a very interesting tweet I saw from an insider. 1 minute. Okay, so Louis Dangor, who's a British reporter for wrestling, he had a really interesting tweet about Cody Rhodes. Yeah, so let me find it. So he tweeted out this graphic, and I'm going to share my screen here and just make it a little bit easier. He tweeted this out. He tweeted, look at the Google Trends for Cody Rhodes. It was hugely up after his AEW exit, expected, but has now dropped considerably, expected. That trajectory will continue. It will be best to capitalize and have him debut ASAP. This is why I don't think Cody is signed with WWE yet. I mean, it's a reasonable thing. Honestly, like, it does make sense for me. I think if they were going to maximize it, they would have debuted him last week. So for me now, I think you're going to have 2 wrestlers issue open challenges for Mania. I think Edge is going to be facing AJ Styles. I think that's all but a done deal. I think just they have never faced each other in WWE, and they've never faced each other in general, but that's such a dream match right there. But then I do think you have Seth Rollins versus Cody. I think both Seth and KO go into WrestleMania not having matches. KO comes out to the ring, craps on Texas, Stone Cold's music hits him with a stunner. That's it. And I think Seth comes out and says, I'll take on anyone who walks through. And then I think you hear a Kingdom hit. I also would not be surprised. I said this last week, but I do think part of Cody's new deal is going to have the requirement of him using Kingdom as his entrant music. I do think WWE tries to do their in-house production. I know there's a whole thing with licensing, but I do think Downstate literally has 2 current WWE theme songs. Like, they literally do Dolph Ziggler's theme song, and they do the Miz's theme song. So, like, it's not going to be hard for WWE to make arrangements for Cody's theme song there. Interestingly enough, too, they did a theme song for Seth Rollins a few years ago that never got used, but it's also a really good listen. Definitely go check that out if you have not. But I think Cody makes his debut at WrestleMania now. I just think it makes the most sense. They're going to go for that WrestleMania pop, that WrestleMania moment, have him debut at WrestleMania. And then if you are debuting that new title, have him show up on the next day on Raw and win a qualifying match for probably like a fatal 4-way for that belt, and then have him win the belt. I think Cody is definitely WWE bound. I think he's going to face Seth Rollins at Mania.
I could see that too. I think there's more likely a shot. I don't think they're going to throw out 2 open challenges at WrestleMania with Owens and Rollins. I think if one's going to have one, it'll be Owens. But it's just tough. I mean, we really have to see. I think we just have to wait and see what happens these next couple of weeks. I'm not sure when Cody will debut. I think it could be within the next few weeks. I also think it could be at WrestleMania or maybe even after WrestleMania, the night after. That wouldn't surprise me either. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. It's really tough to think about it also because, like, they have to familiarize him. You talked about this last week. They have to familiarize him with the audience once again because WWE, a lot of them are a completely different audience than AEW. So a lot of people generally won't remember him or may have not been around in that time. So I think they do have to do that. But at the same time, there is enough of an audience to get a WrestleMania pop out of Cody Rhodes. There's a large percentage of it that still knows him and still follows along with him. So it's really just for me a wait and see. I think he will debut at some point. I think the latest is probably after the night after WrestleMania or the SmackDown after WrestleMania, one or the other. But it's really a wait and see. It could be tonight, next week, could be WrestleMania, it could be one of those nights. Who knows? But I want to keep it going here. So there's one match in particular for next week's Raw, I believe it is, the tag team match that really just – I think a lot of storylines for WrestleMania could be built within this match. It's Alpha Academy defending their tag team titles against Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins and RK Bro. So, I mean, first of all, just give a prediction for this match. And second of all, what feuds do you think could come out of this match going into WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think Alpha Academy retains. I don't know if that's a popular decision or not, but I think it just makes the most sense because they've surprisingly gotten pretty over the last few weeks. Chad Gable and Otis have been doing the best work of their careers, and I do think that WWE is not going to sacrifice that because I do think the planned WrestleMania match, it's going to be a pre-show match, I'm guessing, which sucks, but it'll probably be Street Profits versus Alpha Academy because you're not going to do Street Profits versus another face team. Street Profits are over as hell, and you're going to give them that WrestleMania moment. I do think they win the tag titles at WrestleMania. I know a lot of people have said that they think Riddle and Orton are going to break up when they lose this match. For me, I just think that if the rumors are true that Randy's going to take some time off, I think Randy is written off TV after this. I don't think that is from Riddle. I think he just gets like thrown through a table by Alpha Academy or Seth Rollins and KO. Question is, where does that leave Riddle for WrestleMania? I do think you see him appear in some sort of United States Championship match in some shape or form. I guarantee you there's going to be at least one title match that's going to be a ladder match at WrestleMania. And I think it's going to be either United States title or the Intercontinental. It could even be both, but I think it'd be wise to have that and then maybe have Riddle win that. It's weird because now that I think about it more too, the mid card on Raw is so overtly saturated that it's just like super busy and you don't really know where it could go. I think Rollins and KO, it's kind of self-explanatory what happens. I do think Owens and Austin is a done deal. I think Cody and Rollins is probably going to happen. I couldn't really think of anyone else who would face off against Cody on his first match back, especially since Seth is just such a reliable worker in ring and is like so good always and like is probably the most consistent wrestler on WWE's roster over and over again. So I do think they're going to have Seth and Cody be in that match. So I guess really the one thing I don't know is where it leaves Riddle, but I think Alpha Academy retains.
Another thing that I could see a ladder match as well. But if Randy Orton is taking time off, I could definitely see a Priest versus Riddle match for the U.S. title, especially if Damian Priest does turn full-time heel. He's been teasing it for months now. He's been sort of this tweener. And if he turns into a full-time heel, I mean, those two obviously know each other very well in real life and in the ring. So I think that's a WrestleMania match that I'd like to see. I think they'd have good chemistry in the ring. And for that U.S. title, I think it just elevated the mid-card team even more. But that's something I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'd be more likely for them to just throw him in a ladder match because it seems like the plan definitely was to throw Riddle against Randy Orton. But if Orton's taking time off, then it just leaves him alone. So I guess you put him in that U.S. title ladder match. But it's really, I do think Alpha Academy retains because I don't think Rollins and Owens are going to go into WrestleMania as champions because of those two matches on the table. But I think it does set up a lot of interesting things. I think this could go really anywhere. I really could see any of these teams winning. I could. And this is one of the matches that intrigues me a lot going into WrestleMania season. But now we could touch on, before we get into the AEW topic, we could touch on the women's matches for WrestleMania pretty quickly. So first, it was the expected match, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. I think both women's matches are scheduled for night one of WrestleMania. So, I mean, you could just go rapid fire for both of these. I mean, what do you think is going to happen, and really what do you expect from these feuds as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't care about the Charlotte Ronda Rousey fight, so I'm just going to say Ronda wins and get it over with. I really don't care. They could not. WWE has done a terrible job booking this match, and both women don't seem like they're fully in it and fully excited for it, so I can't get invested. Becky versus Bianca is going to steal a night. It's going to be a show stealer, which is why I don't think that it goes on night one. The only worry I have, though, is that Bianca, oh my God, Bianca.
Yeah, I think they did announce it for night one.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure.
That adds an interesting foil into it in that how are they going to balance that? It would not surprise me, too, if they just do a last-minute change and don't have Rousey and Flair close it out. And they do have Becky and Bianca close it out. Because the truth is that WWE knows crowd control. And they know how the crowd can get excited, and then they're going to have to regain their energy for another big moment. And Becky and Bianca is going to have to main event one of the nights. It's got so much in that feud. They're two of the most over people in the company in general. And like Bianca is, oh my God, I don't want to say anyone is ever the most over wrestler on the company, but Bianca has a really good claim for it. She's getting crazy pops. Even if you go back to watch the Royal Rumble, Bianca, when she entered at number 8, when her graphics glitched and her graphics accidentally played like 20 seconds before she came out, she got one of the biggest pops of the night. So, yeah, Bianca's going to win in a strong way. I think this match goes 20, 25 minutes. It's going to be a very good match. Bianca wins. I think both matches are obvious. I think Bianca wins, and I think that Ronda wins. But I think the way that they happen is unknown. I would really like Becky to just slowly turn face during this match and Bianca to just stay face. I don't think Becky's going to stay heel for much longer. I really think Becky is just like, she's also a tweener right now, but I think she's just going to turn back full-time face, especially if she has to be put up against Ronda. I don't think it's going to be a squash match. If it was a squash match, that'd be a shame. But I think that they're going to make it a good competitive match. So I think that match gets a good amount of time. I think Charlotte and Ronda is a squash match. That's why I'm worried about it being the main event. I think Ronda wins in 2 minutes. Taps out Charlotte in 2 minutes. That's my prediction for it. I think it's a very quick match. So,
yeah, we don't have to. I'm not going to spend too much time on these because we still have a lot of time going into WrestleMania. But I agree with you. I think Ronda Rousey wins, and I think Bianca Belair wins as well. I think Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch has potential to be the best match of the two nights. I don't see that for Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. I really don't. It's really, both of these matches are just too predictable. And although I'm sure Becky versus Bianca Belair will steal the show, it's still very predictable. So I'm not going to go too much in depth on that. I think you nailed it on the head. Both matches pretty well. And now we can move into the AEW Revolution preview. And, I mean, do you want to start from the top, the main event, or do you want to start from the bottom?
Yeah, let's start with the main event because that's the most important one. Let's talk about Hangman Page and Adam Cole. I think Page retains. I don't know how you don't have Page retains. He's been a great champion. He's been one of the best champions I've seen in a very long time. He has had very good competitive matches since he's won the belt. And it's way too soon for him to lose it. And just like Adam Cole is going to be consistently in that main event spot. And I think Page will be too, but I think Cole is always going to get a huge pop. I think you have Page go over because I think also you can't talk about this match without talking about what else is going on in the card, and that's going to be the tag team championship match. Because the tag team championship match, if you remember, Kyle O'Reilly eliminated Matt Jackson from that battle royal that was going to determine the challenger at Revolution, and the Bucks were pissed. They called out formerly known as Red Dragon. Now there's a match this week to determine if there's going to be another competitor in it, and there likely will be. It likely will be the Bucks. So it's Bucks versus Jurassic Express versus Red Dragon. I think what happens here is you see Red Dragon I think you see the Jurassic Express win, Red Dragon and Bucks fight afterwards, and that makes an appearance in the main event. I think what they are going for here is they're going to do a full Bullet Club implosion at Revolution. I think they've done a lot of slow burn stories in the past, but this is one that you can't really slow burn. I think what happens is you have Jay White show up. You have Jay White, Adam Cole, and Red Dragon attack Young Bucks, who come out to try to help Adam. Why am I doing all this inner circle stuff? Proud and Powerful. I forgot when it was, but they're getting a tag title shot in the future. I know that they're facing the Bucks for this, but I don't think they're giving it to Proud and Powerful. The only way I could see it is if you play into the story of the Bucks come out and screw over Red Dragon, and then you have the Red Dragon and the Bucks fight at ringside during the Page match, and then have a full Bullet Club implosion. But I think it's just this match is going to be ending with a Bullet Club implosion.
I think for Hangman Adam Page versus Adam Cole, I think Hangman Adam Page retains. I think it does add an interesting element of unpredictability in this match, not in the sense where we could really see any side winning, but having Adam Cole in this match, I think some people could expect him to win. But I think it's too early to take the title off Hangman Adam Page. I think he's done a great job as champion. I think it's just too early to take it off him. And there's so many more matches and storylines that you could throw him into. So, again, I just think it's way too early to take the title off of him. And as for the tag team match, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Bullet Club implosion is just bound to happen at this point. I see, like, what I'm struggling with is, I know this is thinking too far into the future, but I think just off topic, Hangman Adam Page wins. I think he goes into a couple more feuds, but I'm not. How long do you expect this reign to last?
I think he's not going to lose here because Full Gear was back in November, and it's just way too soon for him to lose it. Earliest I see him losing is Double or Nothing, and it's really just going to depend on who his opponent is. Right now, I only have two people who could legitimately dethrone him for the belt, and that would be MJF, and that would also be Malachi Black. But I think they really are just keeping Malachi Black in that faction right now, which is why I'm very uncertain about it. I do think it's going to be MJF and Page at Double or Nothing, and MJF will win. Because MJF is guaranteed to be, he is the next big thing in professional wrestling. He is probably going to be the most important wrestler for a very long time. He's like barely 25, I think. So like he's very good. That could happen too. I just think it doesn't really, because if we think about what could happen here, I think there's a few ways that could happen. I do think that Punk beats MJF at Revolution and evens up their score of 1-1. But I also think that it's really just going to depend on when Wardlow turns on MJF. Because we've got that before Wardlow's become one of the most over wrestlers on the roster. And, it has to depend on, do they want to give Wardlow a main event shot or no? So I do think that Page holds until Double or Nothing. I think he probably loses at Double or Nothing. Who he loses to, I have no idea. It could be interesting to see Jay White win it. I mean, they have history. Like Page and Jay White have fought at a bunch of New Japan events. It would fit the whole narrative of White being the slimy guy who comes in, wins the belt, and then White could definitely face people like CM Punk down the line. I think Jay White, MJF, or Malachi Black are the person to take it off.
Yeah, I think MJF is basically a lock to take it off of him at some point. I think that's definitely the next champion they're going to have. I think this reign will last like relatively long. I was thinking in my head because I could see it going pretty long. I don't think it's going to be some short reign. I think it's going to go definitely a good amount longer, but I was just thinking off the top of my head, because although I'm fully confident in Hangman and Adam Page winning, having Adam calling this match just still, regardless of the fact that it's probably a 90% chance he loses, still adds an interesting element to that. So I just want to see your input on that. But we can also tackle both of the women's matches right now, both in one. Britt Baker defends her AEW Women's World Championship against Thunder Rosa, and Jade Cargill defends the TBS title against Tay Conti. So do you want to analyze both of these matches, and then I'll give my take on them as well?
Yeah, for sure. We talking about Cargill, or which one are we talking about?
We can talk about both right now.
Okay, so let's talk about, because the Britt Baker is great. I like her. I think that her championship is overstayed her welcome. I do think Thunder Rosa wins it here. I just think they have such a massive heel female talent. I think also you're going to have Athena come in and be a heel probably. And she'd be a really good person to face off against Thunder Rosa because they have history. Then the Jade thing, I think Jade retains. Jade's going to be the next big thing in women's wrestling. She is a freaking stud. So Jade wins. It's way too soon for her to lose that belt.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could see Britt Baker winning, but I think Thunder Rosa does win. Jade Cargill, I really like what I've seen from her. And I think it's just, again, too early to take the title off of her. Just build her up even more and more and make her one of the faces of this women's division and one of the faces of women's pro wrestling as a whole. I think there's no way she loses. I think the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match is a little more tight, but I would still give it to Thunder Rosa, so I will agree with you there. And let's move on to CM Punk versus MJF in a dog collar match. This has been one of my favorite feuds in all professional wrestling in a while. And, I mean, there weren't really many other expectations for this feud because putting two of the best guys on the mic, two of the best storytellers in professional wrestling right now in a feud, it's bound to make some money. It's bound to be gold. So I've been really happy with this feud so far. But what do you think happens in this match? Do you think CM Punk wins finally, or do you think MJF?
Without a doubt. I don't think there's a single doubt in my mind that Punk doesn't win. I think Punk wins. He's like, keep in mind, he lost to MJF, but I think they're going to even it up. I think also it gives a really interesting foil moment. The thing is the way they booked it, that really interesting promo they cut, it just makes it really interested to see how they're going to do it here. They could very well go for an Austin Hart double turn here. I also think that could really be what happens. If they really have it and they want to have CM Punk be the new AEW champion, it could be very interesting to see him, since he's attached by the neck, see Punk pummel the shit out of MJF and just lock him in the Anaconda Vice and refuse to let go, making MJF a huge face and making Punk a heel. However, you still have the Wardlow thing that is unaddressed. So I think overall, I think Punk wins, though. I think there's no question in my mind Punk wins. But this match should also probably be the main event. I think it really should main event it. Even though there is a title match, I think this should be the main event.
I don't think it will main event, but I do agree with that sense. I think Punk does win this match. It's just I don't think they want to make him look too weak. Obviously, CM Punk is really a transcendent name in wrestling at this point, but having him lose, what would it be, 3 in a row at that point? I think that's a little too much. So I wouldn't have him lose, and I don't think he will. I'm not sure if this feud prolongs even after this. I think it probably will go one more match, but I do think CM Punk does win here. Next, we have Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley, a match that I'm really excited for. So what do you think happens in this one?
Okay, I think Moxley wins. He's going to get that big win in his first big show back. And now I think he joins Bryan Danielson. I think they are going to be together and they're going to be a team. That's why I'm also trying to figure out what happens with MJF and Punk, because if there's a double turn, it would make sense to be Punk, Danielson, and Moxley in a faction, which would be a dream faction. That'd be a crazy faction to have. But I think there's no doubt in my mind that Moxley wins. I think he's going to beat Danielson. I think it's going to be a great match, but I think Danielson's going to lose. Yeah,
I think this is going to be one of the show stealers. I would probably go Moxley as well. Just it's his first big show back. No pun intended, but it's his first big pay-per-view back. So I think I would be pretty shocked if he lost. I think this one isn't really necessarily predictable, but I think Jon Moxley does win here because it's his first big show back. So I would go Jon Moxley here. Next, we have Chris Jericho versus Eddie Kingston, a match that I'm pretty excited for as well. But what do you think happens in this one?
Yeah, I think that you're going to have Kingston win. Jericho shouldn't really be winning any matches at this point in his career. He's already over as hell. Just don't have him win anymore. So I do think that that's what happens. There's not really much else to say. Just Kingston wins.
Yeah, I agree. Kingston wins. This match, I don't think has too many implications, but I think Kingston does win. And now let's move on to Keith Lee versus Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs versus Rick Starks versus Orange Cassidy versus one mystery opponent. Face of the Revolution ladder match, future TNT title opportunity. I'm going with Keith Lee here. I think they're just going to throw it to him at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Wardlow won, but I'm going to go Keith Lee here just so they make him look strong going in. What do you think?
Bask in his glory because he is limitless. Yeah, I think so as well. I don't know if he wins that title from Sammy though. I'm not sure, but it could make sense. But it is a qualifying match for a TNT title match. But I think Keith Lee wins. I think there's no doubt in my mind. My worry is with him and his health issues. I don't want him to like get injured, like falling off a ladder or something. But I do think that Keith Lee wins it. Mm-hmm. Although that's another one too. If Shane is in there, if Swerve is in there, then I do think. I mean, because Swerve is going to be. I think Swerve is the person to dethrone Sammy. So, like, I'm waiting for him to make his debut. He's already signed the company. However, the issue is that the last match is Buddy Matthews versus Pac to get that last spot into the match. So, I do think that you're going to have Keith win here and Keith face Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, I agree. And we can move on to our final match. Andrade, Matt Hardy, Isaiah Cassidy versus Sammy Guevara, Sting, and Darby Allin. What's your quick prediction for this one?
I think what happens is you have Sting, Darby, and Sammy go over. They leave the ring. It's Private Party, and it's Matt in the ring. And Matt gets stomped down by Private Party. Jeff Hardy runs out to make the save. I mean, it makes the most sense. It feels like this is exactly how this is being booked. They've done this angle time and time again of post-match having someone big debut at a big pay-per-view. I think that's what they do. I think they continue it here and have Jeff debut.
Yeah, and Jeff Hardy's basically a lock to come anyway.
Yeah, I think there's a debate that he's already been signed. He's just waiting on his non-compete.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be this pay-per-view. I would not be surprised at all. That'd be a big pop. I mean, in the moment, I'd be surprised, but like it's going to be a massive pop. But I wouldn't really be surprised as a whole if he does debut here. But I mean, I think this pay-per-view shapes up to be a really good one. And
I think this is one of the best cards I've seen in general in years.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is not really one weak match on this card. I guess you could say Jericho versus Kingston, but like
even that I'm pretty excited for myself.
Yeah, they're both so over with the crowd. Baker and Thunder Rosa, even though Baker's like kind of slowed down recently, Thunder Rosa's story has been so long and she's so over with the crowd. Tag team match could very well steal the show. Cargill is great, and I think that she will show really nicely in this. And it's also really nice to see Tay get some action on the main event or on a big pay-per-view. MJF CM Punk, you don't really need to talk about it anymore. It's going to be one of the biggest matches in years. Danielson versus Moxley, two of the all-time greats going at it. The six-man tag match has the potential for Jeff Hardy debuting, and then that ladder match is going to be great. So altogether, it just looks like a very strong card.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this pay-per-view, probably more than WrestleMania at this point.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this week's edition of Off the Top Rope. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like content like this. For every sport we have video breakdowns coming out weekly. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, download the TWSN mobile app if you want to access all of our articles and content from our team of 50+. Go download that mobile app right now. And also follow the Instagram and Twitter at TWSN for all your sports updates. And subscribe to the TWSN Betting Patreon. If you want to get a few dollars, you throw in a few dollars. It's that simple. So go subscribe to that. We'll see you next Monday. I hope we have a lot more to talk about as well, because these past 2 weeks we've had a pretty good amount that I didn't really expect. I didn't expect Cesaro to leave. I didn't expect Cody Rhodes and Steve Austin last week. So hopefully the news lives up to last week as well. So we'll see you guys next week on Off the Top Rope. Peace.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN.